Hi dear children, today we are going to learn a new chapter, that is metals and non-metals. Do you know what is this metal and non-metals? We done little bit in our 8th standard, right? So in this chapter we are going to deal with the properties of metals and non-metals. Then we will see what are the important chemical properties shown by metals. Then we are going to see how these metals are extracted from the earth crust. What are the different processes in extraction of a metal? How it is get purified, etc. is the main content in this chapter. We all know that our universe is made up of some type of matter. And when we studied more about all these things, we are able to understand that there are almost 118 elements were there in our universe. All the things which we see around us is made up of these 118 elements. These 118 elements can be divided mainly into 3: metals, non-metals and semi-metals. Semi-metals or metalloids. Some examples: silicon, boron, antimony, germanium, etc. Metals: gold, lead, tin, nickel, platinum, copper, etc. And non-metals: carbon, phosphorus, sulfur, etc. So, 118 elements were mainly divided into 3: non-metals, metals and metalloids. When we are checking this 118 elements, we are able to understand that majority of the elements are coming under the category metals and some of them are under the category non-metals and very few are coming under the category semi-metals or metalloids. Now we are going to see what are the physical properties of metals and non-metals in detail. First of all, we can deal with physical properties of metals. First point, metals are lustrous in appearance. Do you know what is this word meaning lustrous? Shining in appearance. It is very much shining in appearance. Especially a freshly cut piece of metal is shiny in appearance. Due to this property, we are using metals for various purposes like making ornaments, jewelry, etc. Second point, metals are ductile. Do you know the word meaning ductile? We are able to make it into thin wires. We can draw them into thin wires and it is known as ductility. Have you ever noticed the work of an ornament? We are able to see gold is made into very thin wires in order to do many works. Have you ever noticed the wire inside the electrical cables? You are able to see very thin copper wire inside it. The reason is that we are able to draw metals into very thin wires, which is known as ductility. Next, third point, metals are malleable. That is, we are able to make it into thin sheet. We can beat them into thin sheet. We can flatten it into thin sheet. We all are familiar with thin sheet of aluminium, which we call by a term aluminium foil. We are using it for various useful purposes because it is strong enough. Similarly, we are using metals in various purposes by making it into thin sheet. For making curved shapes like car, fenders, fans, etc. We are using sheets of gold during the during making of gold ornaments. So metals are malleable. It can be beaten or hammered into thin sheet. Now, what are the remaining properties of metals? We can say that metals are usually in solid form. Metals are solids. Except few like mercury, gallium, cesium, etc., which will become liquid form very quickly. Mercury is in liquid form. Gallium and cesium will melt even in our palm. At low temperature itself, it will melt. But generally, we can say usually metals are in solid state. They are very hard and they are very strong. That is the reason why we are using it for various purposes. They are good conductors of heat and electricity. That is the reason why we are using them in our kitchen for making utensil. We are using them in order to make electrical cables, electrical wires. Now we can see what are the physical properties of nonmetals. We can say that nonmetals are brittle. They will break into small pieces if we hammered it. That means they are not malleable or they are not ductile. They are dull in appearance. They are very soft. They are poor conductor of heat and electricity. They will brittle or break very easily. Most of the nonmetals are gases at room temperature. So we can conclude that metals are shining in appearance. They are malleable. They are ductile. They are hard. They are solid in room temperature. They are good conductor of heat and electricity. But non-metals are dull in appearance. They are poor conductor of heat and electricity. They are brittle. And most of the non-metals are gases at room temperature.